Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing a bit of time travel, straight into the courtroom to look at a genuinely fascinating legal dispute that strikes at the absolute core of commercial law. It's the case of Sia Siew versus Lim Gim Chian. We're going to explore that exact, precise legal threshold where a simple, everyday business conversation suddenly transforms into a rock-solid, enforceable legal commitment.
Now, you might be wondering, when does a negotiation actually become a binding contract? It's one of those questions that catches literally countless professionals completely off guard. Think about your standard business dealings. Proposals get made, prices are discussed, terms are just kind of loosely thrown around. But at what exact second does the law step in and say, okay, you are now legally bound? Keep the immense weight of that question in mind as we set the stage for our case today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The business negotiation.
So the foundational facts of this case kick off just like any routine commercial transaction. First up, our plaintiff and defendant met face-to-face. Next, they dove into a whole series of negotiations. This wasn't just some quick email back and forth or a passing comment, it was an active, ongoing business dialogue. And step 3, the core subject they were haggling over was the sale of goods. Picture two commercial entities sitting across from each other, testing the waters, trying to hammer out some parameters to see if they can make a mutually beneficial arrangement work. On the surface, it's just a standard day in the world of commerce, right? People talking, proposing, figuring out a deal. But as any legal scholar knows, what happens in those seemingly normal rooms gets put under a massive legal microscope the very second things go wrong.
Which brings us to Section 2, the core dispute.
Well, as you can probably guess, those totally standard negotiations broke down. And that led to a massive, irreconcilable disconnect at the absolute heart of this case. You have a night and day difference in how each side viewed what just happened. On one hand, you've got this firm, unwavering belief that, yep, a contract was officially formed. On the flip side, the staunch, uncompromising stance that no contract ever existed. I mean, they sat at the exact same table, had the exact same conversations, talked about the exact same goods, but walked away with completely opposite versions of their legal reality. This wasn't just a minor squabble over a delivery date, this was a fundamental battle over whether a legal relationship existed at all.
Let's break down exactly what they argued in Section 3, plaintiff versus defendant.
So the crucial point is really this binary choice the judge was forced to make. The plaintiff aggressively pushed the narrative that their series of chats had successfully crossed the finish line into a fully fledged, legally binding contract. They thought the deal was sealed and enforceable, and they fully expected the other party to deliver. But the defendant? They fiercely fought back against that premise. They argued that absolutely no contract existed, period. To them, they were merely in the preliminary brainstorming phase, an exploratory phase that carried zero legal weight. So was it a binding agreement or just business banter?
Put yourself in the judge's seat for a second. Who is legally right when a commercial deal's status is 100% disputed? When one side demands performance and screams breach of contract, and the other side flat out denies any obligation exists in the first place, how does the court untangle that mess to find the legal truth? A line absolutely has to be drawn in the sand, but where exactly is it?
Let's find out in Section 4, the court's decision.
All right, here is the final outcome of the litigation. The court meticulously examined the entirety of those negotiations and held in favor of the defendant. The judge ruled that no binding contract had ever been formed. The plaintiff's claim was completely thrown out. So, the defendant was legally in the right. They were totally free from any obligation. Basically, the court looked at all those meetings, all those discussions, and all those proposals and determined they amounted to absolutely zero legal commitment.
But why? In the study of law, finding out who won is really only half the story. The genuinely valuable part for us, as focused learners, is dissecting the underlying legal reasoning. Why did the court side with the defendant when the plaintiff was so incredibly confident a deal was struck? Let's shift our focus from the what to the why and uncover the actual legal mechanics behind this decision.
Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is our focus for Section 5, the power of certainty.
The court officially determined that the terms of the agreement were, quote, sufficiently uncertain. This right here is the cornerstone takeaway of the entire dispute. The judge didn't just say, oh, they ran out of time or that someone simply changed their mind. No, they specifically found that the actual details, the essential, foundational terms of whatever it was they were discussing, lacked the definitive clarity required by law to actually be enforced. That ambiguity, it was a fatal flaw. In contract law, a court just isn't going to enforce an agreement if the judge cannot objectively figure out exactly what obligations everyone supposedly agreed to.
If the price, the quantity, or just the basic mechanics of the transaction are left hanging in the air, the court refuses to guess, the law demands precision. And honestly, that precision was entirely absent here.
And this brilliantly illustrates a direct, unavoidable legal cause and effect relationship. Step 1. Because the terms discussed between the plaintiff and defendant were found to be sufficiently uncertain. Step 2. It logically follows that no binding contract could ever be formed. It's like a brick wall. The presence of uncertainty acts as an impenetrable barrier that instantly destroys the possibility of legal enforcement. Think of it like a strict domino effect. You simply cannot build a valid contract on a shaky foundation of ambiguous, unresolved terms. Failing to finalize the specifics literally caused the failure of the entire legal agreement.
Listen, if you take away just one legal principle from this explainer, please let it be this. Uncertain terms equal no contract, period. It genuinely doesn't matter how long you negotiate, how many firm handshakes you exchange, or how desperately one party wants the deal to materialize. If those essential terms aren't clear, absolute, and definitive, the law simply will not recognize it as a binding agreement. You literally cannot bind someone to an obligation that hasn't been strictly defined.
So, I'll leave you with a question to chew on as you navigate the business world. How certain are the terms in your own negotiations? Are you leaving things vaguely worded, just kind of hoping for the best? Or are you ensuring absolute, undeniable clarity before you consider a deal truly done? Trust me, remembering the strict lessons from Sia Siew versus Lim Gim Chian might just save you from a catastrophic legal dispute down the road. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep pursuing that clarity.